Slecht licht, check. Slechte audio, check. Let's go. Today I will show you how to turn a digital camera into an analog camera-ish. You might wonder, why would somebody want to turn his digital camera with all these nifty tricks and functions into a stupid device? Why is analog photography a good challenge for a digital photographer? So if you're a digital photographer and you feel like you can't produce anything new, or you know your camera and you hit that creative barrier every time, you're out of inspiration, you're shooting unconsciously. Imagine having a nice Sony camera at night. You don't have to use a tripod, easy. 1.2, 1.4 lens, you take portraits, okay, very nice, but you're not consciously thinking about the picture itself. It's just the technology that makes it better. But how can you as a photographer become better or have more fun in creating? So that's what this video is actually about. For everyone who likes taking pictures, should try this and see if they can learn something from it. As I strongly believe, I've learned so much starting analog photography coming from a digital camera. Let's go over the basic functions of an analog SLR. You're gonna dial in the ISO. So that's the light sensitivity of your film. So when you put your roll in, you decide whether you're going for low light situations, bright situations, or you can go for like a 400 film, which can take a bit of mixed situations. Whether you have an external or an internal light meter, you're going to meter the scene to see how much light does your scene, your picture, your composition let into the lens of the camera and exposes the film. Then you have your shutter speed, which will determine how much light will come in due to the time the film is exposed. And then you also have your aperture ring, which decides the aperture of your shot, which will determine how much is in focus, so the depth of field, and which determines how much light is coming in through the lens. These three have to work together to produce a well-lit picture. You also have to take into account on 35mm, you only have 36 shots. So you have 36 pictures, and then you have to change your roll, get it developed, scanned. There's also medium format cameras. For example, this 6x7 camera, which will only take 10 pictures. So you can see here I'm at 7, so that means I only have 4 pictures left. 7 itself, 8, 9 and 10. Yes, I can count. For this project I'm going to stick with only 10 pictures to make the challenge even harder. So with the basic functions of the analog SLR out of the way, which means a fixed ISO, manual focusing, which I forgot, aperture control, shutter speed control, and ability to meter the scene, to adjust these settings to the lighting conditions, we are going to modify and DIY our digital camera to have the same specs as this camera. First we have to check on our digital camera how many shots we have left. So mine has 210. It means I have to take 200 pictures extra to only be left with 10 pictures. But I'm not going to do that because I want to save the clicks on this camera. So what we're gonna do is we take out the SD card and put it into our computer. So a general rule on filling up this SD card is taking one map, you press Command C, Control C, so you copy the map, you make another map, which you give a very fancy name, and then you insert that map into the newly created map. So we are actually duplicating one of our picture maps, so we fill up disk space on our SD card. We can reinsert the SD card and see how many shots we have left. So I actually didn't do a lot, so we have to recopy a lot more files into our SD card. So now I'll make a hyperlapse, time lapse of this. I just realized this might take very long, so another possibility is to just shoot 10 pictures and be true to yourself, be honest about it. Alright, so now I'm left with 10 shots. The next step you're going to do is you put your camera in manual mode. If you don't have this dial, you can check a guide for your camera and see how to get into manual mode. To the front of your camera to see if you have a slider like this, which has automatic focus and manual focus. You put it onto manual. If your lens has the same, you also put it on manual just in case. Now we choose what box speed we want to shoot at. So for anybody starting out or just in general, I use 400 film the most because it's a very versatile film. It's good in golden hour, maybe blue hour with a tripod. It's just a general ISO for most lighting conditions. Now the camera is set up in full manual mode with manual focusing, manual aperture and shutter control, and you have the built-in light meter to show you whether you are properly exposing the picture. So you might think we are done, but we are not. We still have the tape. Digital camera has this very cool technology which is called an LCD screen, which makes it possible for you to see your picture after you've taken it. But with analog photography we aren't able, we have no screen, and that's part of the project, is not being able to see your picture, and that way you are taking your pictures extra carefully. We are going to use some painter's tape as it is not so sticky as to damage your camera or be difficult to pull off, and it will block your screen. This might seem a little scary to power on your camera and not being able to see anything on the screen if you press certain buttons. So you can cover up your buttons as well to avoid accidental presses and something, but it's also a good exercise for shooting your digital camera in normal circumstances and not looking all the time at your screen and relying too much on looking down and finding things into the menu. Just use the basics of your camera and the physical buttons to get through your interface and functions of your camera. So this speeds up your process as well. The camera is fully set up to take analog pictures, and we only have 10 pictures left. So now it's time to go out and start shooting. For my first picture, or maybe pictures depending on how I'm feeling about the shot, I will shoot a still life indoors, as at the moment it is raining. So I've set up my camera here on a tripod as I'm expecting to have low light conditions, as it's just one source of light coming in and hitting the subject, as you can see from the soft shadow of the desk lamp right here. I've got this nice plant, and I will look for some other props to lay in front of it, and that way try and expose a black and white. So I thought about it, colors don't matter, a black and white picture that will provide a very soft looking picture. So let's dive into the camera. The settings are ISO 400, and the other ones I still have to dial in. What I'm going to do first is check the composition. So as you can see here, there's still a lot of messy things like the Patterson tank and some camera stuff, so I'm going to move that aside, clean up, and probably rearrange the composition. So it's been 5 minutes and I've still not taken my first picture, but I got around to having some more props. I added chrome shiny camera I got laying around, another chrome-ish shiny water bottle, some shoes and a t-shirt, so I have a kind of product presentational shot. For the rest of the props, I decided to add little gemstone, which hopefully will add some nice texture, another shirt which has some texture on it as well, and then composed everything a little closer together. Then I moved my camera back to the right, and I also oriented in portrait mode. So as you can see, I have a little headspace left here, which will come in handy if I want to crop it,
to a 4:5 aspect ratio, which is something I generally like to do as it reminds me of medium format film and large format photography. So I already kept in mind cropping a little bit of the top off and probably that little side of my desk as well, so I have a flat line at the bottom. Now I'm ready to take my picture. So if I go into my settings, then you can see I'm at f11, which will keep everything into focus but not too much, and probably I will stop down to f8. So I decided primarily on my aperture because I want certain stuff to be in focus, and then my shutter speed comes secondary and will compensate for the aperture. So now I will check till I have 0, and that means at 1/20th of a second at ISO 400. Now I'm ready to take my first picture. First shot done. I'm now going to do another still life, and I have some glass props and shiny things I found. The desk lamp I'm going to use to have a direct beam of light through these glasses, and probably I'm going to use some water as well, maybe a droplet, see what shines. We'll have to figure out something that looks nice. As for the camera composition, I'm probably going to move a lot closer in and see if there's some reflection, something like that, but we'll see how it goes. So water inside, it's not giving a lot of effects, but if I wiggle, you see the reflections inside, so I'm probably going to have to wiggle and then take a picture. I ditched the red carpet. I moved my camera up at an angle, and as you can see here, I found my composition, which has the inner rim coming out. I probably will change the composition a little bit. And I focused on, if I put my hand in the water, you can see here, on the ripples. So what I will try to do is wiggle and put it down and shoot. So that's going to be the idea. Checking my focus again. So move my fingers in the water. Check the focus on my fingers. Good. That's nice. Then check the settings on my camera. I am still at 400, obviously, and then I put my shutter speed at 1/320th of a second to freeze the action, and I'm still able to get 5.6 in aperture, so most of the image will be sharp. And now we are trying to shoot the final shot. You know what? Oops, that was 2 pictures. So always check your camera and see that it's not still on continuous high and it's not single. So now I ruined a shot. It's still raining outside, so I will move on to my next picture using the little cacti, whatever you want to call it. The idea is to shoot from frog perspective, so like this. So as I'm using a shallow depth of field of f2, I don't really need a tripod, so this way I can handheld the shot and try and find the composition easier and shoot it handheld. So I put the cactus on the front of my desk, had the lamp shine a halo at the back, and now a shot looking like this. And I will move the halo up a little bit and then move the plant from the right to the side. Failure because I shoot 2 of them. Anyhow, we might see how they turn out. So now I'm going to take the 4th picture of the cacti being backlit by a fake sun. 2, 3. So it's later in the day and I'm feeling another shot. So here we have the light coming through the big windows of my room, and I'm feeling a shot of this light and this little window and the corner up there. So I'm trying to capture all these 3 elements inside one shot. Now I can take my camera off the tripod, as I will be shooting handheld.
For an intro I removed the tape, so I will have to cover it up somehow. Here I have some tape lying around. Ja, dat werkt niet, godverdomme. So my camera is back taped on, and I'm going to choose my shutter speed, and I'm going to put my shutter speed at 1/80th of a second, probably 100th of a second. So what I'm going to do is I put my camera, I'll take the whole wall in frame and see how this is going to meter. So it's giving me a little plus, so I'm going to increase my aperture, and now I'm at f5 for f5.6. Yes, so I'm at f5.6, which will give me enough to get the window in frame sharply, as well as the shadows. Or I could just move up, get to the trees, which I showed you earlier, and try and get those sharp and have the rest in flue. So I'll see how it will look. I'm feeling I'll have to move a little back because I want this highlight, this highlight to be fully in frame. So I'll move down a little bit, even more. I'll move back, I'll put the lamp down. Okay, I found the composition. Alright, so now I'm outside and I'm going to try and take some black and white double exposures of these plants. I want to be at the first left long point. So as you can see, I can't make it, so I have to increase my aperture, and now my aperture is at f2, f1.8, so I'll probably stay with 1.8, but keep in mind I will be redoing the same when I'm at my proper composition. So I already took the flue one, but I took it down there in the bushes, so I had a clear view of the sky, and I had several of these little flowers together, and that way I had like a darker spot. And now I'm trying to take this little one, put it back to this darker background, and that way I can burn this lighter part onto the darker parts previously exposed. Also, this idea didn't come from me. I got inspired by a very known photographer on Instagram. I'll link him down below. He's called Wesley, and now due to lockdown he's doing these photography walks later in the day. I think it's at golden hour, where he has these long harsh shadows, and it looks very beautiful with plants, buildings. So I kind of got a little inspired by him, so make sure to check him out below. He's making some very dope stuff in the lockdown, so he really proves that creativity can be stopped with staying inside. So we ended up taking only 7 pictures, which I'm gonna show in just a second. I hope you learned something from today's video, and I hope you will give this experiment a try.